down Q, down F, F, down L and B, and then you've got all of your buffs up. And you use like Q, Shift Q, forward RMB. But basically, you have two abilities that give you a buff, which is down Q and down F. F for cancel, forward F to go through your target. I think that also does something, I'm not too sure. And then down L and B applies the debuff. And then from then on out, it's just like filler, whatever the situation requires. So if you need AoE, frontal guard, you know, that sort of shit. You kind of like after playing it for a while, you figure it out. But if you like jump right into it, then you're just gonna be like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Because it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Pretty standard for me.
Not
no, it doesn't.
I'll excuse you because you've got boomer hands. It's all good.
Dude, not a boomer.
You are when it comes to Nova.
No, I'm somebody who did not take care of themselves when they were younger.
Oh, so you actually have like physical limitations.
Yeah.
Can I introduce you to Witch or Guardian? You'll be fine.
No, I got into a lot of trouble when I was younger and severely screwed up my hands. So I have osteoarthritis, which, yeah. Lots of repetitive motion.
You got jumped into some
pain.
Canadian gangs. I get it.
Yeah, there are some classes that, even for me, start to get a bit taxing on certain pushing. Dark Knight is one of them.
Player, I don't want to hear you say anything.
Well, Sork isn't that bad. It's just annoying. It's more annoying on Sork to have to press all those buttons to do no damage. That's the biggest problem. I don't think the butting.
Any damage on Sork?
I don't think the butting pressing is a problem. I don't know. So ask fucking Cacao.
I think the problem lies between your chair and your monitor.
I think they nerfed the God class on purpose.
What? The class has got nothing but buffs. Behind Ranger. I don't want to hear it.
What, after the fucking millennia of nerfs that they never unfucked? Yeah. So wait for a year or two for them to forget that they're nerfed, and then buff them in the patch and be like, well, see, you buff. You forget the minus 200, but now we give 200. Much strong now.
Because your ping sucks.
Oh. Class sucks. Even Boomer Brain, when he was leveling up, dude. That's what he was doing. He was going through all these characters, getting them awakened, and just seeing like how comparatively unawakened feels to other characters.
Yeah, but he literally doesn't even know how to play the class that he...
I know, but he asked me, he's like, how do you do damage on unawakened? I was like, I'm not even memeing at you. There's like 3 buttons.
Succession does damage. Succession Sork does a lot of damage.
Nigga, he's either not awakened or not Succession. He's level 50 or level 40. Go.
Yeah,
Explain.
Go.
Succession does... Yeah, no, stop.
I thought you were talking about when he hit 56.
No, he's not even close to those.
We didn't even... Nigga, you stop. We didn't even talk about fucking specific...
What are you jumping, dude? I already said he was trying to awaken his characters, which already implies he doesn't have Succession.
Let's see here. I don't know. There's like a few abilities that actually do damage on the class. You couldn't tell him that?
I did. I was getting there.
Did you do it? Did you do the damage?
Or
was it too hard for him?
No, I told him it was just like, there's down LMB, Claws of Darkness, and into a Dark Flame combo, and that's about it in Dream of Doom.
I think the biggest problem with Sork is that you have to maintain buffs and debuffs, and then also evade, but you're supposed to do bursts between your evasions, which doesn't make any sense because the class doesn't hit that hard in the first place. It's a controller. It's not even fucking DPS pass. When Mystic fucking out DPSs you, something's wrong.
Well, there was inherently lack of accuracy built into the class that were legacy systems that I don't think they've still to this day addressed and normalized to all the other characters. So like classes like Mystic, as you're saying, that comes out with, oh, here's just a free 20% bonus on the skill. Here's a free 20% bonus. Here's a, like all their skills have bonus accuracy or guaranteed hits. Sork, yeah, good luck with that. You'll have to do your 8-second uptime buff after you do your 8-second crit time buff, mixed in with your other uptime, PvE add-ons. Here's your 5 seconds of glory. Do damage before you have to click the bell, the buff uptime again. But it's not even that good, even still, compared to, let's say, like Wusa or, as you're saying, Mystic. Mystic just blew away mobs.
I'm loving the Wusa, that's for sure.
Who else just fucking shreds mob? It's not like Ninja, dude.
Lan.
I'm sure your Kuno felt kind of...
Succession Ninja blows shit up.
My brother said he couldn't figure out Kuno. I didn't level mine yet, but
yeah, it's because he's retarded. He doesn't know.
Yeah, it's got the same.
You have to know the combo to be able to do it.
It's a different button mapping than. It's got the same ability, but it's on the different button. So Ninja, I call it the Shift Q. So it's all the knives right in front. That's just the win button. Same with Musa. You just do the Shift Q AoE and Unawaken, just shred everything.
Yeah, but there's like one or two buffs.
However,
you up and you kill everything.
Before they buff Musa was dog shit Unawakened. It was fun as hell to play, but it was right there with Sork. It was so bad.
It was really bad.
But it's probably much better now.
There's some people out there who probably play Sork really well.
He was playing DK, let's see, before pre-awakens. DK was always a fun time. Haven't even played those characters, can't comment. Wizard, Wizard
Take a quick look.
Wizard Witch is just kind of bleh. It's not, they do damage, it's not like spazzy or fast.
It's my fishing class.
Guardian felt great.
Sorcerer's reboot 1 year ago. Huh?
The soldiers are having a hard time. We need a hero who can lift morale.
Oh, my striker's 55. I gave up on that class.
Sounds like my witch. She's 56 and lives in Valia with fishing gear on.
Yeah.
And that's only because I bought outfits for her and I don't want to delete her.
Let's see if this dude made an updated Sork
Dude,
guide.
it finally took them 600 plus days from me returning from quitting the game to returning for them to finally unfuck the nightmare buff. Like, that's just egregious. So did it just not know of it, or that's on purpose?
Started suppressing the people at the refugee camp.
This dude's doing Elvia Hex Sanctuary. That's way too many buttons though, dude.
Now, if you have Giga AP on Sork, it always feels good.
Well, yeah, but that could be said for almost any class, right? Like, if you got shitloads of AP, anything's going to feel good.
Yeah, but there's also like a good smoothness with Sork.
Oh,
Like,
is there? Okay. Like, there's
Yeah.
a rhythm to it.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is it just does no damage compared to others. So like once you overgear a certain area and you can clear with it, like it's not a bad time. The problem is
a lot of you just play it as an assassin. I'll be right back.
yeah, the olden days required a certain scaling because of the accuracy and stuff that was built in, plus the accuracy that you got for having high AP on main hand or main hand enhancement AP. having an accuracy modifier independent of what was on the gear. Basically hidden stats in the background of the game, whether you care to go into the nitty-gritty details, but they had a different game design, and they've struggled over the past, what is this, year number 6 over there?
Yep.
Or am I out of touch with reality?
Nope. Year 6.
Because I'm having brain cancer because somebody said 8 years and finally 600 GS. This game hasn't been out for 8 years, has it? 6 years?
No, it's got to be 6 years because, 2017.
Okay. I lose track. That's how long I've been no-lifing. I don't even know what my birthday is sometimes. But, so, yeah, so, like, after they launched all the Awakenings, people were crying for balance. There was a lot of pay to win within the culture of this game anyways, yada yada.
Yep.
They wanted to keep the game a mysteriousness. They didn't want people to data mine the files. They also wanted to keep builds open-ended. That's why you can't inspect people as you walk by them. They wanted to be kind of anonymous, like you kind of fight them and find out. So you kind of,
Yeah.
you kind of have a mystery about like who that guy is and what gear they're rocking, unless you had like a like something that could give you away like what you're using, unless people were paying attention to enhancements in the chat. But still, so mysterious gear sets. So they didn't want people to fall into a meta. So
Yep.
they were worried about as soon as they release stats, people are going to just start crunching the numbers and go, okay, this checkmates that. And at the end of the day, if what they were attempting to go for, which I think they were attempting to go for, was for a take on rock paper scissors, right? You want to have the triangle,
I remember those
Where-
discussions.
and I don't know. Well, this is just my feeling. I didn't really go into the unless you're talking about between us here.
No. There were discussions on the dev blogs and things like that about rock, paper, scissors, and they wanted some classes to be good against other classes, but worse against others. And
Okay, yeah, I never really read into the annals or anything about like their actual like dev responses. It's just kind of like the feel from the game. So
Yeah.
if it's corroborating, then that's A plus than what I felt how they were implementing the game.
Have a look at these great paintings.
So yeah, so they wanted certain classes, right? You want to build inherent weaknesses to the class and have identifying strengths, right? So like no
Yep.
one class could beat the other classes or nothing emerged. However, it turns out Sorceress was like the queen. She was, if you had the gear, if you were high skill, that was the class. You beat everybody. Because iframe, there's no counterplay for iframe, right? Like, well, there is counterplay, but if you have low ping, you can outplay graphs. See you, brother. So, I think there was some developers in the back scenes who had it out for some certain class designs, or they're just kind of cash grabby, just the business model sector. So they're just pushing characters that are broken, that win at the game, to give people the dopamine rush and
Yep.
spend, buy, woo, we're having fun because we spent money. So there's that. So Sork has always been like bullied in that frustrating part where,
Always lean.
well, obviously you don't want the god class to emerge, right? You want to tuck it behind like
The voice of the
a lot of like pain, trials, and tribulations. So people like me, Darky, who just left and went to bed, a couple other guys that I know. Turns out Sork players, right? There's a certain
Yep.
there's a certain a thematic behind the people who gravitate to that class,
my loyalty
and
always leans towards the people.
we knew kind of the suffering, but we also knew like the power that it held versus some of the other classes, which had like different inherent powers. But then, like once you outscaled those classes, it felt good because then the tears would really start to flow. So there was always that. and Sork was on the bottom tier of the scaling. It was tuned properly at a certain point, and then they became so prominent. And it wasn't that they became so prominent, it was just the fact that by prominence, the popular montages, you know what I mean? Like if you were going to watch somebody like skill, like 1v5, right? Like Sorceress was the 1vx class. If you were good at Sorceress, you literally take on guilds if you wanted to and just like survive for like the entire time. You could just be an annoying gnat that never dies. So they aim to crimp that down at some point where it's like, okay, we don't want this in our game. This shouldn't be possible, right? But it was more directed at Sorceress and good players utilizing this, you know, like all the native systems of Sorceress that they built into the game. So whoever designed the class knew what they were designing, right? So as soon as players figured it out, right, like you could go, oh, somebody like they designed this class to be broken in that sense, or if you play it to a T, because it was still skillful. You know, you make one fuck up on positioning, you give up your back, and like it's, you're
crushed.
done.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah. So Sorceress feels really bad if you have no skill at the game, if you have no hands, but really overpowered if you do have skill. And that was kind of the allure to the class in general. And when they did the PvP overhaul, I don't know if they announced it. It was shortly after the PvP overhaul when they started giving some of the kits back to each character. So they went like, they gutted each character with CCs for the most part and protections. And then they were seeing how the gameplay evolved based on CCs and protections missing. They then they went through each class and basically like rebuffed them slowly into a state that would be viable, like playable.
Yeah, full-on rebalance, yep.
And essentially that's why we have core skills on the Awakening tree.
Gotcha.
So all the core skills are pretty much the stuff that they took away that existed mostly. Some of that is like some additional things, but like I'm looking at two of my Sorceress ones right now, and with the exception of Violation, which was already built in, Kartian Nightmare, which was built in, and then Swirling Darkness is a new skill, and Grim Reaper. So it has 3 things at least on this character that has not been returned to it in terms of original state, amongst other original things outside of like the nerfs, like being my turnback slash is like, well, not turnback slash, but certain knockdowns being PvE only, right, and not PvP.
Yep.
Most of the Sorceresses, I think, are still CCs. The only one that I know of is the birds that used to stiffen, and that was pretty strong. If you get a good stiffen chain on them, you just blow them the fuck away. Yeah, and then they announced for every class in the game had its own separate damage check versus the classes in the game. So they had different AP-DP ratios, so if I was to fight a warrior, which we all knew as sorceresses, they just felt tanky. For some reason, they just felt extra tanky and harder to kill than, say, like a ranger inherent. And you'd be like, well, it's a shield class. It's a warrior. It should feel like a warrior, like brawny and tanky. It's like, okay, I can get behind the thematic. Then they release
but if I'm ripping spells through that armor, right? Like armor shouldn't matter.
Right. So they inherently had higher defense, and I could get behind them having a stronger block, but yeah, when you would super armor trade, it still didn't feel really good. So they would release something like, oh, by the way, when warriors hit sorceresses, they do actually 120% more damage, and they take 80% of Sorc damage.
Oh, I'm glad I wasn't around during that. That would have been absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so I mean, this was kind of like people had already snuffed it out because they were doing like once they allowed people to play around in Battle Arena, people were doing damage tests, and so then they were checking modifiers on their gear and looking at statistical averages on how much damage they do, because you could just go get your health pool up, look at the damage different, or make a VOD of it, and then you could go back and accurately look at how much damage you took based on your health bar, and then record that data and get a statistical average of say, well, at 200 AP and I use this ability on you, like what happens? So people were already compiling the data and basically checkmating the company into releasing these numbers, and I wouldn't say like exposing them, but like I guess that's like in a light word, exposing like their scheme that they had in
forcing their hand, yeah.
Like, so they had to kind of come clean about like how they design certain classes and the inherent weaknesses like as per classes. So they had a disgusting time rebuffing and rebalancing that, let alone certain skills like we were just talking earlier, like just not having accuracy or attack modifiers that were on the same level as other characters. So you'd go grind on Mystic, blow away mobs, and you're like, why is this fair? Why is that a thing? Why is my class still like shit and in the dumpster? So you're forcing me to re-roll to play other classes so I can kind of, I guess, enjoy the game, or I wouldn't say enjoy the game, but like for every hour that I grind on Sorceress, a Mystic does like time and a half or twice as effective. So
yeah.
I shouldn't, like I'm losing an hour for every time I grind, where I could play another character and gain an hour of grind. So that's kind of where when I quit, I was
Wusa.
Right. So I was staring down the barrel of the gun on Sorceress. One, I still like the class. Don't get me wrong. So I don't like. I'm not gonna like write it off and just like hard cry, put it in the dumpster. I'm still gonna play it. I just understand the weaknesses of it. And it's a difficult class to kind of just like suck up the grind on, because yeah, it's not an efficient grind. It's shit. And other classes grind significantly better. So with the advent of all the Elvia stuff, all the EXP stuff that you can get right now, and plus like barring like whatever level cap is, so being 66 is probably like the epitome. I could probably grind for 65 and not really care too much about my loss of money, because I'm just going for EXP. And I could still grind places for a reasonable amount of money even while getting EXP. So the Sorceress doesn't feel terrible in terms of like bare minimum, but it's still losing out on a lot of money compared to like if I was to do an extended grind. Because there's no other way to play your class unless you're just going to dummy the entire time, and that's going to take forever. Alright, we're going to try to breed these ones. Register at breeding.
Best of
So
luck.
only me. And it's a level 20 tier 8 Scum Guzzler.
Jeez.
And she's going to mate with tier 7 horse cack. Hopefully we get a T8 out of this one. How much is Imperial Delivery? 173? Breeding Market. Scum Guzzler. Request breeding. Perfect. The breeding has started, boy. And now, I have to take a walk of shame.
Oh, the I don't have a horse walk? Yeah.
I do have horses in a different stable, and I'm not going to transport them, so it's going to be easier to walk a shame.
Yep.
I have them right there at Southern Guard Camp in by Zarka.
So what you do is you pick up some cargo, so that it looks like you're strength buffing.
Nope. I am just going to autopath over there. Don't care.
There's a rumor that they are the offspring of mad scientist spirits. What are these dreadful creatures?
Oh no, okay, I'm at that part of the quest chain. I hate this bit. Marnie's experiments.
Arnie, some?
The killing the chimeras, like the one where she's got all the shit in a maze. The chimeras and the ogre things.
In the regular quest line?
Yeah. Damn it, and once again I'm out killing shit without any frickin' EXP scrolls on.
Doesn't this have an undo?
What?
I'm playing around with Path of Building, Path of Exile, and yeah, I'm just playing with the interface, and it just has a default selection.
Gotcha.
And I'm trying to read this guy's build because I don't know if you ever played a Path of Exile, but
Yep.
all right, so you're familiar that the trees are absolutely fucking
Massive.
wonderful, and
That's okay. We have a different definition of what that word means.
Yep. And well, I will play whatever cookie cutter, I won't call it cookie cutter, but whatever some guy has designed, and I will basically fact check his build. If you say this is a good build and this will be amazing, I'll test it. So I'm trying to emulate what this guy's doing. Oh, I can't select it.
That fan snap on the forward F is just fucking beautiful.
Forward F.
Yeah, on the Wusa.
Yeah.
It's just such a simple and fast animation.
It's not a bad one. I enjoy playing it on seasonal. I don't know if I'll main it, but she might turn into boss alt somewhere, or who knows.
Well,
does
she's
kinda
supposed to
fuck
be
the
top.
mobs up.
Yeah, like she's supposed to be an excellent grinder, right?
Yeah, I still like
With-
fucking Guardian. It's so low IQ.
Is that the guy that has like the beast modes?
What is a female character? So
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking
I
the
don't know how
male
to-
version.
I don't know how to answer beast modes.
Yeah, it's okay. No, I did Guardian ages ago.
Guardian female character. She has shield and an axe.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no, I
then
was
she has a
thinking
pole arm.
her male counterpart. Zerker, that's it.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of disgusting nerfs to classes and not the right balance, and they promised. I actually waited a year before I quit, or close to it, and then they announced it. They announced something more autistic, and I was really at a point in the game where I was just like, they're just not fixing the right things. Like it's lost my attention. So I could have continued playing, which probably would have been better, but it's probably better that I stepped away for as long as I did.
I've seen devs do really brain dead stuff in a lot of games.
I like just pushing out like Shy when Shy wasn't like what anybody in their right mind wanted, and then like the next patch would be like content update, the Shy Awakening. Now you could play instruments and make music and do that, and we're like, why? This just doesn't even make sense in the genre space of how you advertise this game. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the disconnect between creative development and whatever the fuck they're doing and why people were playing this game in the first place, right? So they kind of...
Well, it's going for that lowest common denominator thing, right? Their goal is to get as many people as possible playing.
Right.
That is not going to happen in a strictly PvP-centric game. Like, I remember when this game launched, and, you know, you started out with, you know,
Well,
it was
people-
pure PvP. You could not turn it off. And people just threw a fit.
Oh, there was even worse that if somebody flagged up and killed you, you lost the XP.
When this first launched in North America, there was no flagging. If my memory is serving correctly, it's the same problem that Amazon's game ran into.
That could have been alpha release before it, because I played at launch and it wasn't perma-flagging.
No? Okay, then that might have been alpha or beta, but I remember just squawking, like people just losing their fucking minds.
Maybe I'd have to ask my brother on that, because he went hard when this game came out. He's the one who got me into playing this to begin with, because I'm not really like I'm really not a avid gamer. Like, I enjoy them, but I'm not a consumer of like what's next on the horizon. I can't wait to play that. You know what I mean? I play like one or two games. Most
I'm
of
the
them have
same.
like, and most of them have like a competitive side, and then one is like an RP side. So I like playing like Elder Scrolls genre games, so I could just go and quest and RP and get into the fantasy of it and the story. And I thought maybe this game would have like, because it had a nice thematic and graphical detail, that it would have like a nice story to play alongside it too. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Doesn't have a subscription, it's free to play, we'll go. So I kind of went at it at a very casual approach, and my brother went hard, and he pretty much got to, I would say he was like one of the pinnacle players on the server, or at least on the server set that we were on, Orwin at the time. And I think he was like maybe behind maybe one or two people in terms of like growth on the server with like
Yep.
keeping up on the leaderboards overall about, you know, who's got the highest level, what's possible. So he would know more about PvP and what that was like. He also went heavy into making the alts, right? Where if you were going to make like a gathering alt, you wouldn't want to go above 49, right? You don't want to
Yep.
have them PvP enabled. You can tuck them behind. So if in beta access, they allowed you to attack pre-level 50 characters, that could be true. Now, if you were talking post-level 49...
Yeah, no,
level
I'm
50
talking cap.
Yeah, I don't know if the karma system was implemented. I know that the old karma system was very, I wouldn't say lenient, but was like at least you could kill somebody like if you're on the same gear level, at least like 15 to 20, like 30 times before you lost karma. It was like 10k karma if you're the same level of person. So you can go and fuck people up if you were like the same top dogs, right? So
Yeah.
as long as your gear matching, you didn't lose heavy karma. Yeah, you can go and attack people as what you're saying. Like it's open season. We're going to find whoever has highest growth on this server, flag up, attack them, try to take their EXP and take their crystals, right?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if the crystals were breaking, but I know the EXP loss. That was one thing I knew my brother was complaining about. So it was hard. It was kind of like you had to be sneaky to go out and grind places, and there was only like 3 places to grind in the game anyway. So
Yeah.
so it was kind of like checkmated for as soon as let's just say as soon as the above average casual paced gamers, because he was he was the no life at that time, where he could just put in like, you know, the 12 to 16 hours a day easy hard and be at the top just because he could just put in the sheer volume of hours. So as soon as people can catch up to the same threshold, then you have the different kind of as what I would just deem as the faggotry. They're out there to just be piss ants and fuck ruin your day. It's good times. So not that that's anything negative, it's just is what it is. And it's part of the game. Deal with it. So once the pleb baseline could catch up and go be disruptive, yeah, that could have been maybe what you experienced. I didn't even make it past level 30 when my brother was complaining about people botting, and
Yep.
as much as the fish botting, and he was in a guild because he was at the pinnacle. You know, you catch people's eyes and they're like, oh, let's get into Node Wars, and then, you know what I mean? So then you get into communities of people who are like, oh
Yep.
yeah, well, we're doing these cheats and this cheats, and they're all talking about it. My brother's like, ugh, like, this game's full of a bunch of faggot cheaters. Like, fuck me. Like, and we want to go hard in this game, thinking that like this game is going to be, you know, like the combat's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's yet again another free to play cash grab game that isn't policed, and it's going to be full of cheaters. And I mean, it only takes me like 2 games of that. Like H1Z1 was one of the early access games that I bought into, where I knew that was going to be cash grab. Like after, I don't know, maybe after a year of them sitting on development,
Yep.
where it was like, oh, I kind of see the model that they're going for now. It's like, let's release this. It's basically selling you on an idea that'll never happen. So that's like lazy developer scamming in a nutshell. And they just top it off with like, hey,
Insert
we're not gonna-
obligatory Star Citizen joke.
Right, exactly. So they're just we're not just gonna outright say we're scamming you. We're gonna politely scam you by giving you fake updates that we'll never accomplish, but it's whimsical. We'll just keep you in the whimsical that makes you feel good about your money that you just threw to the fucking wind. And hopefully down the road you forget about and eat your losses, and then after we've sold this idea so many times that we can then just walk away from the casino. So whoever developed H1Z1, the handful of developers, they fucking had a gold mine when they pushed out Battle Royale. And that's why people gravitated. They had a surge in that game. They had a chance to make that game amazing, but they just milked their Steam shop. They milked the sales. They didn't police the game. It eventually became full of cheaters. It was hacked, all the shit. And then nobody wanted to play it anymore because the devs weren't doing anything about policing it. So the game was fire. and hence now you've got PUBG, and then PUBG. I never played that, but I already got a taste of one. Why am I going to go to the next?
Yep.
Why am I going to go to H1Z1 2.0?
Or Apex or any of that. Yeah.
Apex was amazing fun, and they've done much better with Apex. But yeah, my brother tried competitively. He's insanely good at FPS, and I'm kind of dog shit. So he was like, I don't want to say like Apex tier, but maybe the division below that. I don't think there's maybe there's Master, maybe there's Grandmaster. I don't know what the division was in Apex. It's definitely above Diamond, and I was in Platinum. And when he was playing with me in Platinum, instantly cheaters left and right. So as soon as we got into like the borderline cusp in which like skill matters and like the
Oh yeah, then all the cheaters come out of the woodwork.
right, and then the game wasn't policed and it just ruined the taste. They're like, dude, why can't we just can't play any PC game without kids cheating? And it's just kind of been like the distaste for gaming we've had literally for like decades.
That's why I don't do competitive gaming.
Right. We can't play H1Z1 full of cheaters. We can't do Arena and WoW full of mods and add-ons that are basically cheating. It's not cheating, but it's basically pseudo-piloting an aimbot. There's Cronus now for controller users. So at least console was the last saving grace of the minimal hacking, to where you knew that, hey, you've got a set of noob sticks, I've got a set of noob sticks. We're going at it with the same equipment. But now people have their nice controllers with extra paddles underneath. They have extra buttons.
Oh, dude, those have been around for like since the NES. Like controllers with macro buttons and shit like that.
No. We're just saying, like, if you were to have like an Xbox controller or like an Xbox One or whenever 360 came out, that style of Xbox controller, not the big ass Xbox or a regular Xbox controller, but the little bit sleeker version.
Yep.
So you would know you'd have two joysticks, a D-pad, 4 buttons, 2 claw buttons, and 2 bumpers. That's it. You knew that was the standard equipment. Even playing field. Nobody's using controllers, if it's proprietary equipment, and nobody's like gone out and either interfaced the software just yet on how to find, like third party a controller that's viable for the interface, right? Eventually people are going to figure that out, our software engineers will. And then offer something like modded controllers and modded Xbox. It took them to when they launched Xbox 360 before, obviously that was the birth of online play for console gaming. You had Xbox Live, fucking wonderful. Now for the first time ever, we have cross-platform on a console in your home that you don't have to go down the street and play against the neighborhood kids who may or may not be shit at the game, or somebody might be a tryhard and sitting there and playing it all days and ruins the fun for everybody else. So now you can actually be competitive with these games, yada yada.
Yep.
So at least consoles used to be a saving grace, but Cronus now.
I don't know what that is. I'll be honest.
So it's basically a modded USB thumb drive, basically with male-female ends, and you basically plug your controller into a thumb drive and then plug that thumb drive into the controller slot.
Okay, so it's an adapter.
It's an adapter which has a programmable software. Most of these shooters don't have randomized recoils. They have patternized recoils.
Yep.
So when you fire and hold down the trigger and it goes so what the software does is maps the recoils, sets the profile, and then injects inputs as you're shooting this gun to nullify the recoil. So you're basically cheating. It's a cheating thumbstick that's acceptable with all these faggot rats who play shooters on controllers. Not only do they get aim assist because developers go, hey, they're playing with joysticks, the sensitivity that was required with your thumbs isn't as good as a mouse and keyboard. That's just fact. Mouse and keyboard. Right. So you'll have a dexterity increase with mouse and keyboard just because you can control those movements better. rather than, there's some really good people on controller. Don't get me wrong. However, the advantage is still mouse and keyboard. So really good keyboard, mouse and keyboard versus, you already know the deal. Don't have to beat that to death. So the added layer is they have aim assist within these games that they program. So soft help, right? To, as they should, because just a little bit.
It's just an
used to be
accuracy
not as
boost.
egregious, but Call of Duty is fun and as great as a gold mine, as close as they've gotten to Battle Royale being correct in the gaming industry. They still get it wrong because they do not police the software, and nor, I don't know if they can, other than they would have to monitor inputs on suspect players coming into games, right? So I don't know how you design that, and I don't know how you modify other than having that third party. Like, you have to have another handshake, which probably injects lag into a system that's already, you know what I mean? Like,
It's already very sensitive to latency, yeah.
Or the only other thing is you create like a small kilobyte log file, right? That then just you read later and you retroactively go back and say, hey, is the data coming in for this character correct? But what's stopping the software program to then relaying to that log file the pre-input? You know what I mean? Like, you see how the sport or the gamesmen are going to game the game.
Yep. That's a sport in and of itself.
Right. So, I mean, not to fault the people who can, like, cheat the game. I mean, there is some utility in people who cheat the games because you could at least poke holes or loopholes or find loopholes. I'm okay with that kind of thing. Like, if it's already programmed and you're exploiting what's in the programming, you're not adding additional layers to it. You're just exploiting what's in the game. That's good on you for figuring out a weakness, and that will then call the developers to come and go, okay, he's not cheating, but he is an exploiter. So Blizzard would have that policy. If you're exploiting, like, you could be banned. Like, could be. They keep it kind of willy-nilly, like how egregious. Or they have the honor code, like you should play this game as according to as is, right? Like you won't go into get yeah, whatever. Even though most people will, they're going to exploit if they I did it.
I would never do it. For the simple fact I have way too much time invested in that game.
Well, sure, I did it in Warlords, and it wasn't really like because I was quitting or anything, but I was just willing to do it. Actually, I was at the point where it's like if I got banned, I just wouldn't care. At that point, I didn't have, like, as what you're saying when you're saying too much invested, like BDO, I have way too much invested comparatively to like WoW. WoW, I kind of really played at it like a very healthy casual level throughout the years. I would lose years of playing that account, but not like in terms of raw hours of playing the game. Like, I have a lot invested in Black Desert as compared to something like WoW.
Yeah.
But I could see that as well. There are a lot of people who don't want to lose their account, especially if they have like achievements and stuff they've done and completed, and they like having that stuff. So, in Warlords, there was an exploit in Highmall that only engineers could do. You could get hot potatoes, and you would need 2 people. So I'd get on my mage, my brother would come in with his priest. Well, we had it actually 2 different characters. He had a hunter on, I had alliance characters. He had a horde as well. His priest was on horde, and he could slow fall me. So we could exploit on both our horde servers and our alliance servers. And what you would do is hot potato until you explode it up in the air high enough. You would goblin glider, and you were able to get out of the first boss arena in Highmall.
Really?
So you could go in on Mythic version, exploit, get out of the arena, and I believe either the mobs did not spawn or there was a clear path. I think the mobs just didn't spawn. There were some mobs that you had to avoid, but it was plenty fine. But most of the brunt of them were not there, or you just bring like an invisible potion. So it works wonderful on mage because you could just cast invisible and you just walk by all these things. And you'd go to Brackenspore, if you remember that fight in Topography. I don't know if you ever
Yep.
did it. On the little beach. And out in the
Yep.
water before Brackenspore spawns, there are 5 mobs. And they're one-shottable. And you go out there. I could Ice Lance all of them on my mage. Hit them all, tag them all, kill them all. And then I take a looterang, because I'm an engineer, and I ranged loot it. And they would have mythic, like Warforged BOEs,
Oh yeah, that's broken.
selling for like 30k to 50k to 80k, somewhere in the neighborhood. So
How would you even
me and my brother called that shit fucking Christmas. We went to the bank. So we didn't if we found them, we didn't inject the market with a fuckload of them to kind of be like, well, how does, said mage, but my mage was a default name, Torquay. And he was like, how does this mage have 9 mythic belts, right, on the marketplace? No. And you wouldn't do it from your main anyways. You'd put it on an alt that nobody would suspect, or you make a level 1 character, send it to him, and then sell it
bank
from a
out,
different
absolutely.
name, right? Yeah, you basically embezzle the money without having the name trail. And even though Blizzard could probably see the gold trail on your account if they wanted to see, if they cared to look, right?
Well,
But
they
if this
totally
is-
can.
Right, but if this is low key and done correctly, you basically had a source of on tap, let's just say every other day you could just check out 100k gold and not doing anything. So we got basically, I did it because I was looking to get gold cap, and I don't know where gold cap was at that time. It was already beyond the 250,000 gold or whatever it was at that point. I
Yep.
think I made it up to about 500,000 gold. It wasn't gold cap, but where I was like, I have enough money in the game that I feel like I can buy my enchants for a rest of the expansion. You know what I mean? I'm good. I don't have to farm in the game. That was kind of the purpose of my exploiting. I wasn't trying to go break markets or anything like that. I was like, no, I'm filling my pockets, so I don't really have to ever play the game in terms of money ever again.
Yeah, I did enough of that shit in vanilla.
Yeah, so that was about the only scuzzy thing that I've ever done in WoW. And that was an in-game exploit. It wasn't like I hacked and did anything
Yeah.
game breaking. This was something that was in their game that was cleverly thought of from some geek. We were privy or given privy to the information, and we were like, fuck it, let's go do it. And pretty much, yeah, just rinse, repeat. You reset the instance, log your character out. Obviously, you can only do it so many instance resets, but as long as you pace them out once every 20 minutes, reset.
Yep.
Farm 2 to 3 epics. Okay, put them on the market. All right, it's good. Pretty good. For how much gold people had in the game at the time. Obviously, I don't think the tokens had come into play. So there was still plenty of RMT and people botting for gold and stuff, and the high injection of gold value within the game.
Yeah. No, my brother and I both. Anytime there's a new patch or area opened up, since Friends and Family Alpha, we're going around seeing where we can get that we're not supposed to.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my brother was the one who figured out and posted it on the original beta forums that if you let yourself get killed, you could travel around any friggin' spirit healer in the game and resurrect there.
Oh right, yeah.
Right? He was also the one who discovered that you could get up on top of Ironforge. And that actually prompted the devs to put the airstrip up there.
Right.
Just
invisible
as a
wall.
just as a joke, right? I'd like to say I've discovered things, but mostly, most of my time is discovering new ways to die.
We had you ever know about the I don't know why my brother knew this too. He's actually criminally faggoty. And he knew how to bypass the chess event. So as long as
Oh, and Karazhan.
yes. As long as hold on, I got my Black Desert disappeared. And I was swapping for a boss. I've been waiting for like hours for my game to disappear cuz it hasn't in like a day or two. And I've been swapping and going to all sorts of places. It's a matter of time before memory issues happen. Let's see if I can get back on before Piranha dies. So, on the way to... You have to get past Curator in order to do this. At least Curator. And it helps to have killed Shade, because then the trash can despawn and you don't have to deal with the trash. But even if there is trash, you could do like Invisipot strat and maybe get to some places, because on the stairwells in Karazhan there are dead zones where you could stand very carefully and wait on cooldowns and then weasel your way. But there's an area before you do the Consortium NPCs in that circle room. That platform with books before that, there is that window. There's a window. So you can jump on a stack of books, jump towards the window, which there's like a little Invisi glitch wall, and then you just jump up into the window. And then you can get outside of Karazhan. And like basically like what outside of Karazhan is, like if you zoned out of the instance area.
Yep.
And then there's my brother show. It's actually terrible, but he's like, oh, and now you go over here, and he was like coaching me this whole time, like he was watching my screen, and I'm like, dude, and I was impressed because I didn't know of, and it's not like an exploit. It's just like invisible walls that they just never patched or fixed on their own end. And he's like, you like take the road, and he goes, when you get to this point, there's gonna be like this wall I vaguely remember, and it's basically an invisible wall that you can walk that will bring you all the way to this point that you then drop into, and then there's another invisible wall that you need to hop, and basically you can hop into Prince's room without having a...
I know the path you're talking about.
Yes, and you're basically on the outside of Prince, and if you can bring your whole raid, so if you were like stuck on Shade and you couldn't beat Shade, or you couldn't get I mean obviously I think you can... Shade had the... Did he keep the doors locked if you couldn't beat him? Can't remember.
Yep.
So you couldn't go do chess. Yeah, you couldn't do chess event without beating Shade.
Yep.
So it'd be annoying as well if your guild also sucked at chess event too, or your pug. And it was always nice that if people didn't want to run Kara, that he'd be like, hey, well, this pug went to shit. Like, you could come into here, use my ID, and we could go to, we can just go do Prince loot. Dang it. They killed her.
I think I'm going Succession with the Wusa.
Succession is a good choice. I think the class is possibly designed better for Succession. I'm still Awakening.
I read that somewhere, yeah.
I do like Awakening, but it just doesn't feel as designed well. And I haven't played Megu, because I don't know if Megu has a good Awakening or it's also Succession-based class. So I don't know if the thematic of both the sisters are to be... Both their Awakenings are kind of clunky and not really... They're kind of like a style flare, but their main fighting staple is their Succession builds, or that's the more power in their kit. So you kind of like, if you're an Awakened Wusa or Megu, you use the Unawakened kit, and then you transition and do kind of like a couple abilities in Unawakened, and then you want to transition back.
So something like you do with the Dracania, where you flip back and forth.
Yeah, so some classes, right, like you can just live in Awakening, like that's Guardian. Guardian is low IQ, you can
Nova.
live in Awaken. Yeah, Nova as well. Obviously, if you go Awakening, you wanna utilize the Awakening kit for sure, and you don't really want to switch back to Unawaken.
Yeah.
But if you're Succession Nova, that's also very
Never tried
lock
Succession
playstyle.
Nova.
Seems like a good time. Me neither. I do like Awakening kits. Me just preferential. Oh, I missed the bird. Oh well. So yeah, there's that Invisawad. I was thoroughly impressed that I was like, dude, why the fuck would you know this? What kind of fucking faggotry is this? He was like, yeah, dude, so many people got fucking clapped at like we got like you know how many flame reefs got fucked up, you know, and wiped pugs that, you know, some of us like figured this out on the outside. Oh, like what
Bloody
the actual
flame
fuck
reef.
is this?
You know,
Because you also got to think, I don't know about age of YouTube, but I mean, there were like montages and stuff, but there really wasn't like active postings of exploits.
no, there
to go,
wasn't
you know?
guides or anything like that on YouTube.
So, like,
at that
if
point.
somebody, not saying like other people don't think the same, and like that's the way I think sometimes. Like, if I'm thinking of it, I'm probably not the only one who knows about this. So, I'm probably not unique in that sense. So he's probably not unique that he thought like that and he could like get to the boss fight by exploring the dungeon. As you're saying, like you participate in doing stuff like that, like just playing with the walls or the boundaries and
Yeah.
stuff. I did a lot of mountain hopping in WoW too, just exploring the world and the terrain.
in
like
WoW Shittylands, sorry, Shadowlands. My brother and I were off the sides of the map like every night.
It's funny.
You know, he'd get on his rogue with that friggin' grappling hook that they've got now, and
Yeah, ours was getting into Hyjal and getting to the World Tree, and just like trying to explore that area.
Yep.
The other node that was off of Wetlands that was supposed to come at some point was just basically an expansion zone, and if you could hop the mountain and get into it, it was just basically flat, undeveloped topography. That was the same with the area where they eventually patched in the Blood Elves. There was a little segment of land.
Yep.
They added Ghostlands, but Ghostlands didn't exist. But that was also saying it was just like flat grass, just cookie cutter tessellations of flat terrain, no mountains.
and Courage before they loaded it.
I didn't go that far on that side. I think because when I started playing WoW and kind of getting into it, I think BWL had just launched, so I wasn't really
Okay.
quite at the exploratory phase, and you know I was still
Gotcha.
playing the game for what it was. So I think by the time I could get leveled up on a casual sense, I did Molten Core. Our guild that I got in, we conquered Molten Core. We were actually like doing really well for the content that it was released at. We progressed through BWL. I think we were progressing on Nefarian, and I do remember AQ being launched or existed. I do remember the launch, but we couldn't get into it for a
Everybody
while.
who's around remembers the launch.
I know
That
I did
was an
AQ
incredible
20.
event.
It was a good launch. It was also kind of cancerous for PvP on my server, at least, because it was kind of horde dominated compared to Alliance.
Well, you know, Horde's better.
Right. Arguable though. In modern WoW terms now. After they buffed racials and all the good PvPers left Horde, and you know,
Oh, dude,
the,
no.
the inherent Horde design for PvP is disgusting. But that's kind of like BDO. Like you could look at these racials and be like, they favor the Horde. They want the Horde to win. What the fuck are they thinking?
Well, they totally did. They
Will of Forsaken, fucking it's orc
Metzin's
racial.
Mary frickin' Sue is Thrall.
Mm-hmm. What are we gonna do? Oh yeah, we're just gonna give orcs a natural 25% stun resistance or whatever,
Right.
15, I don't know, or 10, or just fucking something stupid. You're like, that makes sense. That's fair. What are we gonna give humans? Oh, original
you're-
perception. It wasn't about stealth. It was like bonus money, I think, or like
bonus
cheaper
money and
prices.
reputation.
It was bonus money, reputation, and then there was like one other thing, and it wasn't like the vision on stealth. That was like Burning Crusade after they reworked perception. I think gnomes, which I was playing gnome nuts myself, my gnome mage, which I like thematically. Escape Master was at least pretty good. So I can't complain about that. Night Elves had fucking Shadow Meld, which was
Yep.
niche, but it really was hard. You can't use it in PvP barring you're in combat. So the only people who can really take advantage of it is Night Elf Hunters, which could come out of come out of stealth, aim shotting. So that was about the only cool use of Shadow Meld that you can use. Now there are some use. I mean, I played a warrior, so Shadow Meld was kind of cool. Like if you got like Spirit Res camped or something like that by some horde who was looking for you, so you could go Shadow Meld somewhere like kind of sneaky, and you could then go play
Yeah.
the game. You know, that let them path around for like 10 minutes and go, oh, he must have body res, man, and he fucks off. Because there ain't something like some World of Warcraft that sucks dick if you got camped. You literally cannot play the game.
Nope.
And at the point in which I was playing the game, and the zones that I like to go to, you bet there was a level 60 fucking Gaffet Rogue waiting for you to get to jack your ass.
Sounds like you spent a lot of time in Ashenvale? Ardenvale?
Well, yeah, I leveled a Night Elf Warrior second. So I leveled my mage first. And I kind of migrated all over the place because I like doing quests in the game. So I took kind of an odd path. For some reason, I discovered quests that starting in Dunmoreau that somehow led me to Red Ridge Mountains after I got through Dunmoreau, Koronos, and Loch Modan. And then somehow I got guided over to Red Ridge Mountains through a quest line and like skipped doing Dead Mines or any of that stuff. My brother did. He was like a Stormwind-aholic, so he always was in Stormwind leveling in Elwyn Forest and stuff like that. And I kind of didn't like that area of the map. I didn't like the grass, the dry grassland themes of the like the Barrens.
Westvale.
Kind of.
Oh, yeah.
The Barrens is a different feel when I leveled my horde. It's like I enjoyed that. It was kind of like fitting for the thematic, like the cows in the pasture almost
Yeah.
for the Tarns, and it was like it kind of like grungy and rough terrain, which kind of makes it feel like that's where the orcs came from anyways. You know, they're kind of like let me get this thing pathing in a circle.
How the fuck did my horse get over here? Alright. Apparently I wandered quite a ways doing that quest.
Sometimes that's the way she goes. Do I have horse training? Shit. I still have one running. And a Mount EXP scroll 1 hour? Go for it.
Weekly reset was already done. I need to go kill Baby Val.
Yep. Alright. Got that taken care of.
Can you do that on a character that's not 60 yet?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You won't have access unless you do the storyline to the other weekly quests. I took my lawn. I'd already done it on my Sorc because I'm a questaholic on my sorceress.
Yep.
But some of the other characters I can't be fucked. But I like to do like all the unique quests that I can on my Sorc. I've been out of practice as of a few years, but when I truly get to the board state, that's kind of what I was doing. I like completing things. I want to do this gem. That gem. Alright. No way. Holy shit. Oh my god, it requires Earnhardt. You gotta be joking me.
What's Earnhardt?
He's a NPC in this game. And he captures mobs.
Oh yeah, you're doing the Path of Exile thing.
Yeah. Einhard, what the fuck his name? I don't know. Yeah, leveled up Night Elf Warrior kind of in tandem because you already know. I mean, if you're a casual, like, it's like 2 weeks of playtime, real life, or 14 days, you know, times 24 hours, typically. So I realized how many hours, I was kind of account sharing with my older brother. So I would really only play the game on double EXP. So if I ran out of EXP on one character, I would, you know, just log and
roll over to an alt.
Yeah. And I was doing a lot of like hand-me-down greens and stuff like that. I would get in dungeons, and so I had like this pool of greens that I was like, oh, I can at least level up my warrior and feel pretty good that like he's not gonna be like a gimp weasel like my mage is. And my warrior didn't have a bad time, but yeah, I did the Ashenvale side and did all the night elf thematic, and even to this day, when I level on that side of the map, my brother would get upset at me because he's such a Stormwind baby. He's like, he still would not want to like program his brain to understand, like, you know, he did it once, and he goes, I didn't really know you get to like almost level 30 leveling over here, and it's only these two zones. I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been trying to tell you this for like a decade. Like, leveling from Darnassus to Aberdeen or Ashenvale, or not Ashenvale, or whatever, Darkshore, into, like, it's good leveling experience.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Stormwind blows.
Yeah, and you have an instance right there, you know.
Stormwind's just a stupid city. Logged on to some of my original Alliance alts the other day, now that they've opened up the ability to transfer gold pretty much anywhere.
Oh, across characters?
Across characters, cross servers, cross clusters, the whole works.
That's interesting.
So I was just basically stockpiling all my gold onto my current characters, right? And just, yeah, switching over to Stormwind, getting anywhere in that fucking city.
Only the fit shall rule the world. It is due to Lord Ilion's guidance that Calpheon has become so grand.
Caelus path is on the road to truth. This is something that
Oof, when your sudden stop skill on your horse is low enough that... Oh, shit, it just pitched me in the fucking river.
Didn't we tell you to lock a certain ability?
See a friendly face.
Yeah.
Because of this, we cannot be critical of
But
the
you locked caution, right? Not you weren't talking about caution, was it?
No, not caution. No. No,
When you were drifting or something?
So, yeah, I tried to do the sudden stop thing. And it slid way past the guy I was trying to get to. And so I turned around and there was a little lip and the horse wouldn't go up it. So I stupidly hit spacebar and then forward, which is which is your rapid start, which I haven't been training on this particular horse. So it threw me into the river.
Threw yourself into a wall?
No, into the river. I'm in Calphion. So it pitched me into the river that runs through the city. Because my horse is an asshole.
Get dunked on.
Miss, it's time to go now. My loyalty always leans towards the people. The voice of the people is most certainly welcome. Time to go now.
Hey, rookie. So nice to see a friendly face. How are you liking Calphion?
The Jean Merchant Guild will keep going forward. We started our journey with Sienna Town. Come a long way. Together, of course.
Why does that not go into the fucking... No way. Okay, there we go. Oof. He said you click. Oh my god, I right clicked it again like a fucking buffoon. Affinities. Essence. Yes. Why is that like... It's so bad actually. That's one thing they got wrong.
Just one?
Yeah, just one thing I don't like at the moment. I'll make a list of bitching and moaning. I mean, Path gets a lot of things right, so it's not...
Oh, it absolutely does. I just, yeah. I don't have the time to invest.
I've only played 3 seasons, and the last season I played quite a bit. And by investment, as I said, this is a fun game. As I would. This item cannot increase in rarity. I just want to store it. Fuck. Okay, there we go. Perfect. I did the same thing. I found myself like in a dead zone of BDO. I wouldn't say like where I wanted to play something else, but I would be doing, you know, if I'm slaying cooking tools, right?
Caution.
Jaw-dropping experience. You could put a math on the metric of cooking tools. Well, obviously it's faster now with mass procs, so it's not quite the same metric unless you can account for mass procs plus the weight that you would need in your inventory for materials. So more times than not, you can't stockpile 15 minutes worth of cooking anymore
Yep.
because you churn through the material, unless it's like beer or something. Like you could do it with the chicken meat for sure. I think I had 20,000 crafts in my inventory, and I could hold the weight. I could not hold the weight when I created the products, though. The products were too much. So I made like 100k beer the other
Which
day.
always boggles
beer.
the mind.
Right. Well,
Like,
it's the
I'm
side
not-
shop reagents, right? They weigh like
Yeah.
0.01.
Yeah, but it's like I'm not adding anything, and yet it gets heavier.
Neat.
I mean, if we could do that in real life, just have mass appear out of nowhere, we could exploit the hell out of that.
Yep.
That's like free kinetic energy right there.
Somebody will. I wonder what they do know in the background. As much as I do have a slight understanding of physics.
A conservation of mass. I mean, you can't just make mass appear out of nowhere. It has to come from somewhere.
Well, if you believe Einsteinian physics, we have an equation that E equals mc squared. So we have a
Yep.
relationship between energy and mass. So technically, it's a breaking of conservation of mass.
No, because that matter that
There's other things that we know. So let me give you another example. So when you talk about binding energies of nucleons, I think that's the right word, for between protons and neutrons, you lose a little bit of mass in the binding of them. So
which you get
they're
back
mass.
when you break that bond.
Right. So now you still have that equation, E equals mc squared, playing up. The E equal mc squared doesn't apply for.
Sure, it does. That little bit of mass that you lose when you combine the neutron and the proton
Yeah,
is
but
energy.
what I'm talking about is like the formulation for it. Like it applies in terms of like if you want to calculate the mass energy and that mass and what that equates to in terms of energy. Sure. Now, why that is such? That's like well, we don't want to ask why, but you would say, well, where did the mass go? Is it conserved?
It turned
No, the
into
mass-
potential energy.
Well, it's not conserved because it turned into energy.
But it doesn't disappear. It's still there represented.
Right, so you have conservation of energy now, which is a higher parent, but not conservation of mass. So you have to throw out conservation of mass in lieu of Einstein equation.
Well, Einstein's equation basically states that mass and energy are just two states of the same thing. Just one
Right.
accelerated to the speed of light squared. Which, you know, is faster than anything. But it
But
breaks
there is a
relativity.
nuance there. There is a nuance there. You have conservation of energy, but not mass, because we can exchange between the two.
But if you can move something from one side of the equals, you can move it to the like. It's a balancing act, right? Like it's an equality.
Sure.
So if you still got energy, that mass still technically exists.
Right, in the form of energy. But so in physics, the classic definitions of conservation, that is, if you start with it on one side, it has to equal it on the other side. Now,
Yes.
I get what you're saying is equating it in terms of energy, but that's not how things are defined. And I know what you're saying in terms of the verbiage, but when it comes to careful definition, saying like angular momentum is conserved, that means it better equal on one side to the other. you can't make you cannot say, oh, well, it just equals that in a different form. No. It's literally is mass equal to, if you have two objects, mass A, mass B, if they combine, is it equal on the other side, mass A plus B? If the answer is true, mass is conserved. If the answer is no, it is not conserved. That's just the simplest form of how you define conservation.
But okay, so you were the one who threw out the Einstein's relativity.
I didn't throw it out.
No, sorry, you brought it into the conversation,
Oh yeah, sure.
right? So you threw the term out there into the conversation, as it were. Sorry, poor
Yes.
English. So, I mean, you have to take it into account.
We'll take what into account?
Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yes.
So
If you've accepted his theory and if you've convinced yourself of the experimental data that is suggested that it supports, and there's enough evidence to support the theory and there's not enough evidence to deny it, well, theory is also backed by evidence, so you can't really, it's not I'm just being careful with wordage here because I'm making sure you're on the same page, because some people, when you even scientific minds, when you say, oh, it's just some theory, they think in the colloquial terms.
yeah, no,
Right.
no.
And I'm trying to divorce
Theories are
conversation
based
in terms
on
of
conjec-
colloquialisms,
yeah.
even though we are using colloquialisms.
It's
So-
the joys of the English language.
Right. So that's all I'm making is the distinction between I don't want to bog it down in terms of colloquialism, because it is easy to understand with them, but at the same time, if you want to be careful with actual technical definitions and then start getting into mathematical definitions, you got to have very fundamental definitions, and that's all I was really saying.
Yeah. No, I get that. I totally get that. But you get where I'm coming from, right?
Yes, exactly. I was just being extra nerdy and saying, well, that statement is not going to fly with a group of goober nerds,
Yeah.
because how many times I would get roasted for that if I gave a talk on that, and I would try to make a statement of a plea for
I get it.
conservation of mass. It would not fly. It would be met with a lot of scrutiny, and be like, well, what do you think about this equation, and why is mass conserved now?
My physics prof and I actually got into a discussion about can matter, the preservation of mass be a constant, right? And things like that, and
Remove yourself from poverty.
conservation of mass. Wow. Yeah, I'm getting tired. My brain's starting to fog.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got into a discussion about that, and I mean, this is 20 years ago, but he did the whole, well, if you combine these two materials, you get less mass. How does that work? And it's like, well, because it's converted to energy. It's stored as energy.
Or it's given off, but
Yeah,
it is
well,
energy form.
it's energy, right? It's yeah, like an exothermic reaction gives off energy as heat.
Same concept.
Yeah. But yeah, we got into a bit of a discussion there, and
Yeah, it's funny because we were doing Darky, because he's studying for MCAT stuff, and he kind of asks me some questions from time to time, and sometimes I give him places to look that could be helpful, and because I'm very, I would say, very knowledgeable, but at the same time very practical with what I know and what I don't know. So if I'm pretty staunch that I say, hey, I know this, and it's going to take a good lieu of evidence to upset it. So I just want careful argumentation. I don't really care whether right or wrong, because it's got to upset the I got a lot of ammo in the tank that needs to be reshelled if I got the wrong ammo. So he kind of values that to some degree, and that's kind of what we were talking about today with and it's a subject area that I have never like formally sat down and read through. And I have a chemistry book next to me that I kind of casually read before going to bed. And some of the concepts I can kind of, since I'm not really practicing it or like practicing the chapters and getting it stuck in my head, a lot of the stuff I can remember, but a lot of the stuff is intuit. So like electron affinities, atomic radius, and all the standard stuff that comes with the descriptive chemistry. And I haven't made it to what we were talking about today, hybridization, which talks about valence orbitals or electron orbitals or energy levels, if you want, or have you, and what that actually means. And then what he doesn't have is a little taste of quantum mechanics, which basically, if you have a taste of anything in mathematics at a high level, you have to decouple what you think of like normal, kind of a standard practice of, I guess, my brain. Maybe it's just my brain, but most people's brains, they like pictures, they like images, you know what I mean?
Yep.
They like geometries that are satisfactory. They like this like simplistic models, and which are great and all, but however, you got to sometimes break yourself mentally from what you can image. Is when we say shells, we're thinking of like, oh, it goes around like a circle and it encompasses. But yeah, that's not it's true, but if you keep in lieu of quantum mechanical principles, it's like, as you're not looking at the atom or the electron, the quantum particle spreads out into an electron cloud field, which has a probability of being found in this shell of a certain particular energy. And then once it hangs out in this area, the structure that would then form by this one electron, with you not looking, will be a spherical shell. And that's kind of like, well, then if you add other electrons to higher Z values, say from a helium atom, obviously a hydrogen being the simplest case, then you have to balance the Coulomb repulsions and get all that right. And what positions would they occupy in space? What would be their minimization function? Where would they most likely be? And that's kind of the ideas between valence electrons, or the valence is, once you start going up higher and higher and higher, it's just what energy levels are occupied where and why.
Yep.
And then they try to pair basically what they would look like. So sometimes they have like just by what they look like, you're looking at cross sections of probabilistic distributions, essentially coming from Schrodinger equations or solved Schrodinger equations, but some of them you can't solve for.
Heisenberg equations as well.
Right. Some of them you can't solve for analytically beyond, I forgot which ones they're trying to do computationally. I think like up to sodium, but even those that's
shit
the
gets
last
broken.
That was the last my physics professor and my quantum professor in master's program was telling me. It's like, yeah, they've done up to probably like sodium now, or trying to like get good solutions of Schrodinger's equations for the actual functions of where these places occupy, because the precision of having an analytical solved is that then you can then know precisely, I guess, the minimization, if you're gonna like try to predict spectra that come from atomic excitations, then you got to know exactly where those energy levels are.
Yep.
And then a weird thing happens is that when it comes to bonding, the bonding then takes a whole new form. And that's what I haven't I told him today, is like, I don't quite get and understand the verbiage of hybridization, because I didn't really ever like learn it that way, or never have had to be honest. And it's like, for me, first time revisiting the subject, it's kind of interesting to think that when it comes to bonding, the shells kind of vacate. The shell idea is no longer applicable.
Yeah, it doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah, so as soon as you get close enough to an atom where they're discussing, hey, do you want to bond? They forget everything we know about valent structures. I mean, obviously, Pauli's exclusion principle probably still applies, and all the quantum number rules apply. However, what we described in like the first sections, I don't know if it's like Hund's rule or there's some I forget the names. I can't put the names to them, the chemistry names, because some
Right.
things I like giving them names, but at the end of the day, I really don't like the fact that it's like so and so discovered this, and I'm like, is he really the first? Why did we
Right,
give him
yeah.
credit? You know, like, is this just knowledge of the universe, or is this God's knowledge that you were meant to discover? And it's always been here, actually. So what makes you have the hubris and audacity to say you discovered it? All right, well, credited with discovery. Okay. So I don't like. Well, we got to know who discovered it, yes, in the experimental discovery, and why that's important, and I'll give them that. But I don't like calling it like giving
Yeah.
a name. It's Einstein's equation. It's like, yeah, I guess so. Maybe if
was
he's the Lone
brilliant.
Ranger. If he's the Lone Ranger formulating it at a time. But they say that with calculus too. That calculus was like an inevitable convergence, and it wasn't really
Yep.
Sir Isaac Newton. They say Leibniz probably invented it before him, and he's just given the more popular credit. Obviously, during those days,
The first one to prove it, right?
I wouldn't necessarily. Well, yeah, I guess the word proof, or just come up with a mathematical formulation and basis for what they
Yeah.
would describe. So fundamental theorems and stuff like that. And I think that was late 16th century, where mathematics was looking into probing careful definitions of like, well, that's when you start like having stuff like proof showing up. I think that was a little bit later, where most of the mathematics are like, it's kind of crazy to think, where it was more like engineering. Like, you knew it as a tool. You didn't have to like prove why something was this way, or the structures, or the inherent. You just knew, like, if you combine 3 and 3, you get 6. It is what it is. Like, why are we questioning, like, why are we curious about these definitions? But, you know, some people did get care, because maybe when you start thinking about consequentially what happens down the line with the structures. So if you're trying to bound certain like groups or numbers or sequences or anything like that, you want to know like upper bounds, lower bounds. That's a classic physics thing to do with like Fermi problems, estimation problems, where you can then put things in a ballpark. So you can't get like super far-fetched answers. So why is it when
apply
we
a
throw
range, yeah.
why is it every time nature gets this right? It's never wrong. Nature always gravity always goes towards the center of mass of the planet. It's always pulling down.
Yep.
Whether you know that's the center or not. I mean, if you're a flat earther, it's flat, but it's pulling down.
Well, that's just a
So
tortoise,
wherever
right?
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
I can only infer from celestial objects if they are around, you know, and if we are in a 3-dimensional space, some people can also infer. However, unless you've gone up in space and seen credible evidence of space and curvature, then you really couldn't say. You'd only have secondhand knowledge. You personally have not been in an astronaut rocket out there to the moon.
God, I wish.
Yeah, me too. So we're all at the mercy of trolls like Buzz Aldrin, and there's cool videos on that, you know. And as much as I love my physics, I also love my conspiracies too, and I love the ones who have some weird credibility behind the scenes of the Freemason cults of NASA. And did we really go to the moon? Was it the old?
We did.
Was it the old Hollywood smoke and mirrors of Stanley Kubrick? Now, can we send a rocket to the moon? Sure. Some people still make the weird arguments like, well, how do you get out of Van Allen belts? How do you get the shielding right? What material would get the shielding right? Maybe that answer is out there. I haven't looked into it to be. Those would be my questions too. It's like, well, what did NASA actually use? I haven't looked into the spaceship design. Have you?
Not much, no. Not
It's
since
easy.
I was a kid, anyway.
Right. It's kind of like saying the shielding on your microwave, right? What's stopping the microwaves from getting out?
Oh, that's
the-
easy. The wavelengths are way too wide to get out.
Why?
Because
It's light.
No, it's not.
Microwave is light.
Microwaves are not light.
Microwaves are light. I will stay.
No,
I will die.
they are
I will die
radiant
before-
energy. They are not light.
That's light. Electromagnetic radiation is light.
Nope.
Those who defeat Baby
That's how we define it.
receive the limit.
You're one of these people water is wet, aren't you?
Baby Bell will receive the limitless blessing of the dragon.
What is wet?
My wife just asked me if I'm talking to people on the internet.
Those who defeat Baby Bell receive
Hmm?
the limitless blessing of the dragon.
I'm not fighting with people
That one is on
internet.
the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, if you want to classify light in being the visible spectrum, then you can have that.
Light
but
is
it's
the
light.
visible spectrum, yes.
It is light. If you had eyes that could see microwave, you can. We make
But we
telescopes that
don't.
can do that. We make telescopes that can do that.
No, we make radio antennas that can do that.
Whether we have CCD chips that can receive microwave radiation.
Those who defeat Baby Bell receive the limitless.
Oh, just let me pick up the fucking quest already. Sorry. I've got one of those. You have too many quests.
So right, there's like this lovely mesh covering on the front of microwaves, probably in
Yep.
the back or within it. I haven't deconstructed.
No, the metal sides do that.
Yes, so there's another lovely, basically Faraday cage that prevents it from getting out
Precisely.
and keeps all the stuff inside bouncing around, nuking the inside.
Yep. And the atoms that it excites to heat the food are water atoms. Or water molecules. Water atoms,
Right.
fuck. I am so
Right.
tired.
So the cool thing is that there's also I haven't gone into again I like conspiracy stuff, but there's like if you
Yeah,
think
I'm
like
talking
me,
to
because
the
it's kind
bit of
of
a conspiracy.
the realm that is, because I'm from a military family, and I kind of at one point wanted to be a sociopath and go into something like weapons design. And somebody's already beaten me to the punch where they have basically microwave emitters. So focused microwave radiation.
Oh,
on
yeah,
something
they've had
like-
that for a while.
Yeah, but they can just do that. They have them like in gentle capacity. And I think what the last one I saw was they could use it for if the military wanted to employ them for like riot control. They could do it. But then you could also do it for, I don't know, just making people explode. Instantaneously.
I'm fairly
vibrate.
certain there's Geneva Conventions about that.
I'm sure there is, but you know, there's still people who behead and film that and do
Yeah.
all sorts of cool stuff in sophisticated countries. That doesn't necessarily mean the United States will get a pass, at least on the U.S. side. Somebody brought up, and there was another thing that I wanted to do in terms of capturing energy as well. And I was like, why don't people really focus sunlight into like focused beams of energy and then utilize the heat production in either like water purification or distillation or anything like that? You just basically have an array of lenses that can combine, like if it's large enough, much like what radio telescopes do, right? So if you have a large array of radio telescopes, they can all corroborate the data and put it all together, kind of like the same way. If you have enough of the lenses either in proximity to each other, you can then get superposition to then make this big old energy packet, or choose
You,
how much
you,
of the
you
energy
mean
packet.
like a solar panel?
Not quite like a solar panel because they're abusing absorptive properties. Well, you could focus it on. I'm just talking about taking basically how a magnifying glass works with zapping ants, as menacing boys tend to be. As I was in that realm of the department, lovely playing with lenses. So we use it for destructive purposes, and with great power comes great responsibility. But then you start thinking like, well, this is actually one like a magnifying glass that can focus that energy to a single point. That's a lot of energy, a lot of radiative pressure there that you could just vaporize water, or you could create like an engine cycle out of just sunlight. And I'm like, it's kind of bizarre that there isn't more technology abusing just something like lens technology. And it turns out one of my buddies in another Discord was talking about, yo, have you seen that? That's like somebody created, I don't know if it was like a startup or something, that the same idea that I was having, where they were using lenses to basically generate electricity, either by vaporizing water and turning a turbine. And what would happen is they would have birds flying in front of where the focusing point was. It just like instantaneously vaporizing, like just disappeared. They're gone. I don't know if the
Reminds me of there's a solar array in, I think, somewhere in like the Asiatic area. That basically has a tower that is surrounded by mirrors and lenses. And it's like it's like a 30-foot tower or something like that, with all of these mirrors and lenses just focused on it. And it's got a receiver at the top.
Good gracious.
And it just focuses everything on that receiver and generates enough power through that process to power, I think it's like 100,000 homes or something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that.
Like, it's a huge area. And the only problem they're running into is storage.
Oh, that's always been the problem with electricity. They say that you could generate it for cheap, but you can't store it. So there's always usage demands on grids and stuff like that.
Sweden's got a neat method. They're using kinetic storage. It's not terribly efficient, but basically they, use the energy that they're collecting through the solar and through the wind and all that to move a weight, and then have that weight as their storage kind of thing. And when they release the weight, it turns a turbine and generates energy or electricity.
Right. That's one thing. That's one way to do it.
Yeah, and they're using old copper mines and old coal mines as the places to store these kinetic batteries. It's super cool. And on that bombshell, I need to go to bed.
All right, Champy. Hopefully we fatigued your brain enough.
Well, you know what? I have thought more about physics and shit like that since joining this Discord than I have in almost 20 years, and I kind of like it.
Well, glad to have you thinking in that space.
Yeah, I used to go camping and shit with a bunch of buddies from college, and we'd be up till like the wee hours just talking about physics. And my personal favorite, astrophysics and space and Einsteinian physics and things like that.
I wish they just had. I wish they'd, the powers that be. I wonder what Nikola Tesla had.